Yeah! Happy New Year, everybody. Rebecca, first of all, I just want to say Happy New Year to you. I
Happy
love
New
the
Year.
fact that we're welcoming in the new year with our children's musical instruments. And I'm so happy to be here
Because
in
let's be real,
2018 with you.
when's the last New Year's Eve party we went to where we got a real hat and blower and noisemaker and all those things?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But we know kids' toys make a ton of noise. So if you want to clack and tambourine your way into the new year, we got you covered.
Yes. Yes. You know what? I can honestly say that I wanted a moment with these toys where I wasn't disliking the fact that they were gifted to my children. So I figured, why not use them to bring in the new year on the Body Kindness podcast?
Well, I can't wait to give Bennett my favorite hand-me-down, which is a karaoke machine. So it's coming to you.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and save that for her 18th birthday. So excited to be back here. So excited to be a part of Body Kindness this year. Rebecca, what's going on? Fill me in and the listeners as to what this podcast is going to be about.
Yeah. Well, so this is season 3. And
Ooh.
yay, I know, we're growing.
Yes.
We're growing up. I mean, last year was such a great year. I plan to keep it coming with interesting people. I love interviewing authors, especially. And I don't know if that's because having gone through the pain of and all the emotions, reflecting positively, there are lots of good things for writing a book. But in order to be able to get a book published and the work that goes into it, it reflects years and years of a person's passion and experience and education. And so I'm really excited hitting the new year with several authors and TEDx celebrity status type people. And we're really focused on, in the beginning of the year, it's all about that it's okay to be a misfit. It's okay to do your own thing and why you should. And just, we're going to talk about, health outside of appearance as well. I mean, I do with the guests bring it back to body kindness. That's just always going to be part of it. But, we really are also going to focus on part of what makes life good. So, tune up to your financial health and, really what it means to live and be within your means, and with respect that, a lot of the wellness culture can push this idea that unless you are, spending tons of money on us, then you're not doing wellness. So I really want to address that in the new year, that it can be affordable, like listening to our podcast, as long as you can get to a player, whether it's through your phone or computer, using the podcast, using the free Body Kindness Insider group, that there is no shame in doing what is out there that's helpful, that's free. Getting books from the library, all that is really good, helpful stuff. So in the beginning of the year, we're really focused on what it means to just not do diets and to be rebellious, to find your own way through this stuff. And then, throughout the year, I do plan to offer themes like we did last year. I think that was really successful. And of course, Bernie, my favorite episodes are getting together with you and just being real, where we have a chance to talk about our own goals and intentions, the ups and downs, what's working and not working in our own lives. And just being honest, like, look, it's like our lives aren't perfect either, but just how we are practicing and embracing body kindness through difficult situations, and really hopefully just expanding what it means to be healthy beyond what we think it is. So it's not diet culture, but true well-being, and what that means and how we can cultivate it in a way that works for us as individuals, and how we can work our way through this crazy, crazy world that says you're not good enough unless you're working on your weight and your appearance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I really enjoy being a part of the podcast. I feel like I've been able to grow in so many different aspects of my life as a result of the things that we talk about and the speakers that have been a part of the Body Kindness podcast as well. And I love the fact that you said taking care of yourself, being kind to yourself doesn't have to cost a ton. We do have listeners if you have access to a computer or through your phone, or there are resources at your local libraries where you can log in and hear us, or schools, or if you know somebody and would like to download it for them and pass it on. We just want to make this as accessible as possible. And this time of year, I'm going to be honest, was always, and still to a certain extent until I kind of talk myself off the ledge, has been really nerve-wracking for me. I can only speak for myself, right? And I look back and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, where'd the year go? What did I accomplish? Why am I wearing the same shirt as yesterday? If I'm doing that, how's this next year going to look for me?
I actually don't have a problem with, it's like minimalist wardrobe, and it's conserving. When it was Christmas time, I wore the same outfit on from bedtime Christmas Eve through bedtime the day after Christmas. I had to get out of it eventually, but anyway. But I hear you.
It's a good look, and but the thing about it is that I'm sure our listeners can relate. I know you're out there, listeners, and I know you can relate, some of you, about this time of year kind of being like the dreaded, like, what's your New Year's resolution type conversation. And I'm really happy to say that this year I don't feel that way. I actually had a really interesting conversation with my brother who listens to this podcast. Thank you, Mike. And it's great, right? Because he's really somebody who's been kind to himself. He takes the time to enjoy vacations and finds time to be active throughout his day and really enjoys food that nourish his body, both emotionally and physically. So he does it without thinking about it. It's something that's a little bit more natural to him. But we were having a conversation the other day while shoveling here in Chicago, and he randomly kind of said, hey, what are your goals for this year? Are you, looking to maybe, because I had talked to him just about how I want to pay more attention to my health a little bit, and we'll talk more about that in a little while. But he said, so, do you have a weight goal? Like, what's going on? And, I just kind of paused and I said, no, not at all. As a matter of fact, I know you listen to our podcast. That's kind of the furthest thing from my mind right now. I just kind of have other goals and other things that I want to address this coming year, but that's definitely not one of them. And it was really cool to see his reaction. He's like, oh yeah, of course. Why would I even ask that? So he got it, which was really cool. But it just goes to show you that, he's still, although he lives his life really, really well, and I'm proud of him for it, has been influenced by society and still tends to kind of ask those same type of questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. People we care very deeply about can end up hurting our feelings by asking these questions, and it's not the intention, it's the impact, right? And so their intention may be just as a product of diet culture, or in your experience, right, having gone on a weight loss show where, that was the focus. So that was part of how you guys discussed health in the past.
Oh, that was really our introduction to speaking to each other and the family, talking about weight. Like, we're a healthy family. I, of course, am in a larger body than most of my family members, but we never really talked about weight loss. So I guess I was fortunate in that regard. But even in my family, there's so many different shapes and sizes that we just kind of go with it. But it was really cool for my brother to kind of bring that up. I really enjoyed my response and felt very empowered by it. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that he got it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something, my response wasn't weird to him. It was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, we're past that as a family. And I get where you're coming from, which was it was just really cool. And I'd like to thank him for just being such a cool brother and understanding that that's where my mind is now. That's how I plan on approaching wellness, not only with me, but with my family in the future. So he's on board, man. He's part of my hype crew.
He's Team Bernie.
What old team?
That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing because we can't choose our family. And hey, it's good if we have people we care deeply about. But even when we do have these important connections, it's figuring out how to set those new boundaries can bring some difficult conversations, but you handled it very well. And I'm so glad you got the outcome that you had hoped for. And maybe for you in 2018, that will be a continued place to learn and grow, is just thinking about, okay, is this person close enough where they're worthy to know more of my story and my beliefs? Because you don't have to change everybody's mind, right? But when you decide that this person is worthy of your time and attention to have a conversation about it, that the more conversations you have about, health is about well-being and not weight, shape, or appearance. And, I live in a way where I align with my values, and this is what I love about it. I mean, you, not only does that help you feel good about what you're doing and help set the boundary, but it also offers an opportunity to shift the way others think as well, which then we hope amplifies to their families.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. I was very pleased with the way that I, first of all, thought about his question, and then, of course, my response. But, one of my, I guess, goals for this year, resolution, if you want to call it that, would be to definitely think more about who I'd like to share where I'm at in my journey of being a healthier, kinder person to myself with, because I do feel that we have enough media out there and people and programs bombarding everybody with what they feel health and diet culture should be or is, that we need to be the mouthpiece for the fact that that you shouldn't be doing that to your body. Yeah, so I'm ready for this new year, definitely. And I mean, our listeners out there, I mean, guys, I guess in the past, I would think to myself, oh, I'm going to start here, and when I get here, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to enjoy life better. Like, life is short. And I know that all our listeners out there, we go through our ups and downs throughout the year. Maybe it's something you experienced. Maybe unfortunately you lost a loved one. And if you did, I'm sorry. But for me, when something like that happens, it just goes to open my eyes that waiting to enjoy your life, waiting to be kind to yourself, kind to others, waiting to buy that outfit that you want because you're not where you want to be physically. Like, why? Why? You are where you need to be. You look fabulous where you're at. And it's time to take care of yourself and live the life that you imagine.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And, I'll just add, I've learned so much more about this over last year, but there are people who do want to buy the clothes and they don't frickin' make them in the sizes that would fit their body comfortably.
I know all about it. Believe me, I know about that. You're right. And I'm glad you brought it up. Becca, bless you. Because you know what? For any of our listeners out there who have contacts with purchasing for department stores and things like that, can we get some more double and triple X's in a store, please? I know your printers work. So we just need to smack a couple, different sizes on there.
Yeah, we need more sizes. So we need a lot of cute, stylish clothes in the big sizes.
I agree. And not just for women, Rebecca. Let me stop you there. Because
you're going to advocate for the dudes.
I know about this. This is my department. So I'm just going to scoot over a bit. I'm nudging you here on the couch. Why is it that all larger guys' clothes, especially T-shirts, have to have some type of a character on them?
Oh,
like we're like
question.
A walking billboard, or like something's comical or cartoony about the fact that because we have larger space to advertise some type of fictional character, that's what we want to be doing.
Well, that's interesting, the cartoony aspect, right? Like you can't look polished or into style. Wow.
Or if you do, it has to be some type of a vest, like we're covering it up, whether it be a sweater vest or I hate sweater vests, by the way. I own them. And if you are a sweater vest fan, I don't mean to offend, but I've had enough sweater vests in my life to literally knit a quilt or two. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. And I'm sure there's some listeners out there that can relate. Let's go ahead and see what we can do about making some really cute and more fashionable item.
Fashion forward and affordable. So I remember in last year's podcast, and we know the wedding industry, is a racket in and of itself. But when Kelsey Miller came on the podcast when she was getting married, and she shared about her experience in that she was being upcharged for a dress in her size. And, they'll say something like, well, more fabric or something. It's like, no, that's a way of oppressing people, and it's reducing access. And I get companies need to make money. My point is figure it out. Figure it out, because all bodies deserve to have clothing options that feel good, fit good, move good with their bodies, like you said, that aren't a caricature. And so we've got to figure this out. And I know, apology as I'm not sharing names on the air right now, but I do know there's a men's line, and there are a couple of lines out there doing a great job. So hopefully our listeners are in the podcast listeners crew, and you could post links there. And I will also do some digging around and get some links for our show notes. Totally random tangent, but yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Something that
I'm
we
glad
need
we
to talk
talked about that. Absolutely.
Cool.
Maybe we can get some type of a purchaser or buyer or stylist on this coming year and see what's going on there, how the fashion industry works.
A designer. Let's get Tim Gunn up in here. Make it work.
You know what? We can see what we can do. That would be awesome.
Yeah. That whole last season was focused on models of different sizes. And, that season was enjoyable. But yeah, I think that's an area that we can definitely make some room for. Real quick, for my goal and intention, I really would just point listeners to the last episode. If you happen to miss it, it's okay. It did come out right before the Christmas time, around my birthday. But it was a solo episode where I talked about my word for the year. So there's a lot more detail in that episode. Give that a listen. But it's basically around the word abundance. And so for me, I'm really feeling this need to come up consistently with right now is enough, right? So, and just abundance in every sense of the word. Like, when my critic pops up, it's usually around this idea of that's not enough, push further, push harder. And there's a line between drive, good productive drive in pursuing interests, and this constant criticism of you should be doing more to change the culture, you should be doing more for your book, you should just whatever it is, you should be doing more, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And I feel that it makes it hard to pursue personal interests. Like, I want to take up pottery and piano is something that I can learn along with my daughter online. So there's a lot of reasons why I should be putting time elsewhere. So I just want to cultivate the idea of what I'm doing is actually growing in 2018, and that's a good thing. And so I want to have a good drive to be helpful, but I don't need to constantly sit with this voice that is telling me that there's, something else isn't enough. And what's real interesting to me, I feel like I've gotten to a good point where I can take a nice long break from exercise and still feel like an exerciser, like I've been doing right now. But, still feel like an exerciser and still no interest that that's coming back, right? That I don't need to exercise to make up for something I ate anymore, right? But so now the voice changes its tone. It's just looking for another way to pick on me. And so for me, I really want to cultivate this idea of beyond gratitude, of like, this day is a gift, this moment has gifts, and this is enough. And, something bad isn't going to happen when you say, yes, I am satisfied. Yes, this is enough. And no, I'm not going to do this thing, that thing, that thing, and that thing. Because you know what? I got to sit down and bang some keys on a piano and play crappy music with my daughter.
No, but that's really interesting, Rebecca, because I'm definitely one who appreciates and really tries my hardest to express gratitude daily. And I really like this concept and idea of abundance, because I know that, when I became a father, I became grateful in a way that I hadn't been before. And that was really nice. I was able to kind of connect with myself and with my thoughts and with the blessing and the abundance around me. But I never thought about it in that particular aspect. And I'm not saying that you have to be a parent to be able to do this. I just know for me, it kind of slowed me down, because anybody who does have children or are caring for an elderly parent or, a pet parent, a lot of times you can't necessarily control what your day is going to look like or aspects of it. And there were times where initially I was so lost as to what do I do with this beautiful little being that, oh my gosh, they pooped themselves. I have to feed them. There's a mess here. They threw up. And I had to I remember there being a time where I just had to thank my God and also the powers that be that my little baby's organs were working properly, because that's all I could really do. I was like, thank God that she is able
Everything
to
sucks, but she's alive, damn it. And so it's good enough.
And thank God you have a diaper, and thank goodness that we have some wipes. And I just had to laugh, because I was like, really? Like, that's where it's come. But I was able to laugh and kind of make the situation better and really appreciate what I had, even in the midst of changing some diapers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all very good points. I especially like you acknowledging that for some folks, they've never had kids or their kids are grown, but they are caring for a parent or they care for a pet. And I can think of at least a handful of people who are very close to me who are in those exact situations right now. And it really is no different. You're right. There are things you can't control that happen. And it's about choosing the next rational response that sounds like body kindness and good self-care to you. And,
absolutely.
For anyone who's new to body kindness, your word and your focus and attention for this next year may be about, accepting that where you're at right now with movement is enough, because you actually care on focusing on your sleep patterns a little bit more first. And it's okay to not do it all at once. And so you're going to focus on sleep patterns consistently. And when you feel good about that, then you might think about, okay, what's something that I could do movement wise? Like, it is literally okay to be sedentary and choose that you're going to improve sleep first, feel better about that, and then take a look at what you're doing with activity. So just because certain practices of body kindness are easier for us because we've had a leg up on the journey, just know that there are other ways where we're struggling too. And that this idea of being able to set boundaries, like Bernie brought up, the idea of abundance, and it's okay to be here, those things will help you on your path.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought it up. I mean, let's go ahead and let's ask our listeners, what is it what are some of the goals that you would like to see happen this year? And when I say goals, I'm not referring to resolutions or anything crazy, but like Rebecca said, where are you? It is good enough. And let's also see where you kind of want to go from there. I know for me, I want to be able to allow myself the space to move my body more in fun ways. And I bring this up because recently I've been partaking in a lot of dance parties with my little one. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the other day, it's really fun because now she's at a age where she's coming to me and she's bringing my phone or her little device or whatever is available. And she's saying more, meaning that she wants me to turn on the music. So the other day we were out shopping and it just so happened that she saw my phone and she just started saying more. So we literally broke it down in the middle of a Target. And, I think
you should put a hat out and collect ones or something.
Oh, I'm telling you, even 2 years ago, I would have never, it's just walk straight, don't drag your feet. I would never break it down in a Target. And I broke it down in Target and it made me laugh and it made me happy because that day I was, of course, with the holidays. Oh, I got to do this and I still have to do this. And she just kind of brought me back to base and was like, no, we're going to go ahead and party right here in Target for a bit. And it made me smile. And again, it just brought out just that gratitude that this little being is making me take in life and be kinder to myself and realize what really is important. And like I said, you don't have to be a parent, but there are situations that necessitate you slowing down and kind of just giving thanks and appreciating and reflecting on where you want to go from there.
I love it. I'm super excited. Speaking of all that, to help you on your journey. I'm bringing out my clacker again.
Yeah.
My kids' clacker.
Hey, wait. I have a
almost
tambourine.
donated this. But we need the noise for a little longer. So in response to feedback from readers, so I had a survey out most of last year kind of asking, what is it that you would like next from Body Kindness? And really for me, in my own journey of how it evolved, keep in mind that even though the book is only a year old, I actually started working on it in very early, like January 2015. So that's several years ago, by this point. But I'm very proud to announce the opening for a limited time of the Body Kindness Spiral Up Club.
Yay!
So this is, if you go to bodykindnessbook.com/spiral up, and I'll include the link in the show notes here, but you'll see all about it. Registration is open for a limited time. And this is basically a 2-part program. And what will happen is once we start the program, you get a login and a username and password to a private, secure area that's on the Body Kindness Book website. And essentially what happens is I will start to send email prompts. So these are going to be ways that you can practice body kindness, and specifically the concept of spiraling up. So noticing your negative emotions, noticing those downward spirals, noticing when something's not right. And instead of boom, kind of like automatically going to the coping behaviors that aren't in line with your values, whether it's staying up late to watch TV to escape, or emotional eating, outside your comfort zone to escape, drinking too much alcohol, skipping workouts, there's all the gamut of things that, the ways we could cope that people, we just do it. And they work on this idea of they're a temporary avoidance, but they really aren't in line with long-term values and goals. And so the issue of, learning how to do something different is about noticing those downward spirals and cultivating a practice for spiraling up. So it's not a repeat of the book, but what we will do in the prompts is let readers know, hey, on this topic area, you can reference back these pages in the book if you want to do a little revisit. And for those who are first-time readers or who want to reread the book, you will also get prompts. And there's a free book club that's part of this as well. So part 1 is totally private, totally secure. It's January through December. The content is released in manageable chunks. So you literally grab your book, your journal, and a pen, you read your prompt, and you do your reflection work, and then you start to implement that in your life. And then within another week or 2, you're going to get your next prompt. So you'll expect to see those on a regular basis. I'm planning mostly weekly, but I'm going to take into account different busier times of year and everything. So you can at least rely on between 2 and 4 prompts a month. And that's all private. If you want to do it all private, you're going to be good to go there. The second component is a secret group on Facebook. And this is optional, but it's a great day-to-day place for ongoing support. So I'm there. You can get support and encouragement and advice from others. You can tag me. We've already started with a group of Body Kindness insiders that joined on for some help and support around the holidays, and they're in the Spiral Up Club now. But we are just offering this to everyone else. So again, if you click that link, bodykindnessbook.com/spiral up, you can learn more about the program. We've got a couple of payment plans. It comes out to be around maybe even a little bit less than $1 a day to be part of it. And you also get the best price available for anything that we end up offering in the next year, whether it's one-on-one, e-courses. We've got some Body Kindness workshops and retreats happening. So this is the thing to do if you want to really focus on your body kindness practice, if you want to really think about what it means to be good to yourself with kind and gentle and focused prompts from me, and a chance to engage with others in a space where we're all committed to the practice of body kindness. So even if, there are people who have a weight concern, they're not out there in the group trying to do keto, they're not trying to do paleo in the group. They're trying to learn a non-diet way of living and cultivating a caregiver voice. And, the reason why I created it is because this is something that readers asked for and said, I want something that's more responsive to my particular needs. I want a place to go where I can share my vulnerabilities and ask questions, and also a place where I can connect with others who are trying to do the same hard shit I'm trying to do, and maybe get a little spiral up from them as well.
No, absolutely. And I love the fact that you started this. Thank you for that. To all our listeners out there, I know that you may still be asking yourself questions about how do some of my thoughts or the way that I'm feeling factor into what body kindness is. This is a great club to be a part of, to really start opening your mind and adding more tools to your tool belt. For our first timers out there that are maybe in 2018 starting to realize that diet culture is crap and trying to find something that is truly healthy, I would encourage everybody, from someone who is just hearing about what body kindness is to our awesome listeners who have been with us now for a couple of years. This is a really nice and safe place to explore what it means to truly be healthy. I know that I'm going to be participating in it as well. There's going to be some awesome journaling practices and assignments that I know I want to be taking part in. I encourage our listeners to really join up and do that as well. And again, you can't beat the information and the professionals and the enthusiasm and just the way you're going to feel from just being kinder to yourself in 2018 is so worth whatever it is that you're asking to be a part of the club.
Yeah. And if you're a helping professional, you are welcome here. I mean, look, we are all always doing our own work. And when I wrote Body Kindness, I was sitting there going, I hope other dietitians use this book. And they are, and therapists are, doctors are, trainers are, yoga teachers, everybody. If you are a helping pro, sign up and do the prompts for your own growth and development, but then take them into the clients you're working with.
Come on, Rebecca.
How amazing is that?
You know what I mean? And I'm over here. No, it's great. It's fantastic. And I'm just saying, come on, because especially if you are responsible and have the privilege of working with your own clients, there's no reason why you shouldn't continually be adding to your own tool belt. So I think that's really, really cool of you, Rebecca. And I'd like to thank all those professionals as well, just from somebody who's on the other side of this, somebody who's been, who has sought out and who has received assistance from people who I've trusted to help guide me in relation to my health. And if you're one of those professionals that is looking into this and making sure that you're spreading this, thank you, and please continue to do that. And again, whether you're just starting off on trying to figure out if this is the route that you want to go, if you're tired of diet culture, if you're tired of hearing that you're not good enough or you can only do that when, well, this is something that you should definitely explore.
Yeah. And we have the whole year to do it. And so if you go on vacation or you get sick or you just need a break, what's so amazing about this is we're going to be here for you when you're ready to pop back in. So you don't lose any content. You simply log in again when it's a good time for you. You can pick up right where you left off. It's all going to be there. You're not going to miss anything. So I really hope you take a look into it. And if you have questions, just shoot me an email, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com.
Awesome. I love it. And I know that a lot of our listeners, I'm going to keep going with this just for one more second.
Go for it.
Maybe you know somebody that could benefit from this. Maybe you're hearing and you're witnessing a lot of people saying, oh, this new year, I'm just going to drop that final 15 or 50 or 100 or 5, And if you want to help change the conversation that we're having around health, please feel free to share this with somebody else. Maybe they'll join the Spiral Up Club and we can continue to do our best to eradicate what diet culture is and smash scales and really start doing what we need to combat what's going on out there.
Yeah. No, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to everything the next year has in store with the podcast, the Spiral Up Club, and the workshops and all of it. It's going to be so, so cool. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. And, we have about, I'm thinking maybe 10 minutes or so left to chat. And we got a lot of listener questions about health at every size. So I'm hoping that we could start to answer some of their questions on this show. And if we don't get to everything, we will make sure that we answer those on some of the upcoming shows so that as you go into this new year, you've got some of your biggest questions about health at every size answered. So how's that sound to you?
I look forward to hearing them. Let's do this.
Okay.
I want to see what's going on.
Yeah. So the first one was a listener who's asking for advice on how to start making the health at every size switch with your medical professionals. So specifically, how do I tell them that I don't want to weigh and that I want to start going at things from a health at every size approach without overwhelming anxiety as I'm talking about it?
Wow. Oh, wow. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to talk about what a great question that is, first of all, because that was a conversation I had with, and again, it was shared in a past podcast, but a conversation that I had with my primary care physician. And thank goodness he understood that. He got that. He did look at me a little bit weird at first, but I think that he understood that it wasn't something that I was going to budge on. So he understood. So it wasn't as stressful as I thought it was going to be. So maybe I'd like to throw that out there. I think that maybe a lot of healthcare professionals haven't necessarily heard this. They need to, and maybe they're going to be more open than you think they are. So let's give them credit first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Second, because there's some awesome doctors out there and health professionals, period. But second, doctors, as amazing as they are, there's quite a few of them in this country. So if for some reason, and this is just my opinion, guys, this is just Bernie speaking, and Rebecca's going to either agree or really spank me here. There's more than one doctor out there. So if they just don't get it after you have explained where you're coming from, because now you are confident in how you're going to take control of your health and your wellness moving forward, look for one that actually understands where you're coming from. Because I'll tell you what, when I was able to share that with my primary care physician, it just took the weight off of me, literally. And it was so nice to be able to just kind of be like, okay, cool. Every time I come in here, he's not going to be like, you should really lose some weight. You know, some of the questions that I have with them now are like, hey, how are you doing? How's your family? What are some of the activities that you've been able to participate in with your family recently? What are some things that you're hoping to do moving forward? And those are conversations that I would have never imagined I could have had with my primary care physician.
Yeah, no, and so important. And, you know, what I noticed in the listener's question was talking about without overwhelming anxiety as I'm talking about it. I think that, you know, remember, you can't control your feelings. And this anxiety makes sense, right? So first of all, remember, people typically avoid going to the doctor, and that is a problem because you're lacking access to care. It makes sense you're avoiding it because who wants to be treated poorly by their doctor? That's why weight stigma is a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And we addressed on an earlier podcast when you went into your doctor and you were afraid too. So we've got that whole episode that they can listen to. But keep in mind that anxiety makes sense because you've had past negative experiences with healthcare providers who are supposed to be helpful. So appreciate your body for working. It's giving you warning signals saying this is going to suck, right?
Yeah.
But what can you do to go in with a different plan? I've helped clients write out basically a letter of what you want to be able to say before the doctor's appointment. So first thing, make the stinking appointment. Get it on the calendar. You have a deadline. Then write out a letter. You could write multiple copies. You could give one at the front desk and say, this is for anyone to read before they come into contact with me. And it can say, I do not want to be weighed. Don't ask me to be weighed. It could say more to it, but that is something so that you don't have to talk. If you usually get weighed by a nurse or an assistant, if they didn't see what was in the letter or something, you could say in person, I do not want to be weighed today. It's unnecessary, and just move on. And then get in the room. You could ask the doctor first thing, did you read my letter? Mm-hmm. So I think that thinking about the way you want that initial appointment to go can be really helpful and really healing. But also know that it's right to be worried about the appointment. So maybe you can make space for the fear, and that fear will help to reduce the anxiety you feel. Like it will help to reduce the overwhelm once you say, this fear and anxiety I have makes sense because of past bad experiences. So let me sit with this discomfort. Let me be good to myself, right, up until the appointment. And then I'll be prepared and hope for the best. Like you were surprised at your doctor's appointment. People do get surprised, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you what, I mean, first of all, Rebecca, that's awesome advice. Just again, being on the other side of it, I appreciate hearing that. And to our listener, how cool is it that this is what you're feeling because of where you are, where you've evolved in your thinking about your health? Does that make sense? I just think listen, I think Rebecca's right. Like, definitely it's okay to be overwhelmed and nervous about that conversation and have that anxiety. But how cool is it that that's even something you're thinking about? Rebecca, is what I'm saying makes sense?
Totally.
I just think it's so cool.
Well, I mean, I think it's a sign of progress. It is a sign of taking meaningful action.
Absolutely. That's where I'm coming from. It is an awesome sign. It's so important that we serve as our own advocates for what we feel we need. And that's what I hear in this question. And I couldn't be happier that that's where you're at, even though it's nerve-wracking as heck.
Just, one step at a time, keep doing it. And it's such an important conversation. I'm going to make sure that it continues to come up in conversations throughout the year. I will say that with respect to finding a provider, if you go to sizediversityandhealth.org, that's an association that lists health at every size providers who are the members of the organization. So in full disclosure, I'm on the board for ASDA, Association for Size, Diversity, and Health. So if you typed in nutrition or dietitian or maybe Scritchfield at least, you'd find my contact info. But they have a searchable database. And also Reagan Chastain, who blogs at Dances with Fat, and she's a fat activist and a wonderful person. She did like a shareable infographic that basically is about boundaries to set at the doctor's office. And it's tips along the lines of, this is what I'm here to talk about today. Can we focus on it? Because I mean, she's literally had that thing where she had an ear infection and the doctor couldn't stop talking about her weight. And she's like, ear infection, please, like focus. That's weight stigma. She shouldn't have to do that. And then,
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then what was another one that she said? It was something like, please give me the advice that you would give a thin person. So that's I thought that was amazing. So I will share a couple more links on this topic in the show notes as well, and we'll make sure we keep talking about it.
Yeah, those are some great links. I think that's awesome. I can definitely identify with that story. I used to, when my wife or even my mom when I was younger say, how'd your visit go? I would say, man, I should have been a doctor. All I had to do is just look at people and say, you should lose weight. That was my response. I really thought that that's what all they taught in med school for a while. And again, I know a lot of doctors. I love you. I know that's not it, but I'm so glad that we're having these conversations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Doctors can definitely do better.
Good resources.
Speaking of doing better, so this comes from a physical therapist who is basically telling a story about she encounters so much negative self-talk with her clients. And that the default is they think they're valid because overweight means unhealthy. Like they literally think that and believe that. I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? Because of diet culture. So she says, I'd love to know a good, accessible elevator pitch for the health at every size concept, like something that is reasonable that I can share with them. So I'll put that to you first as a person on the other side, what you might think about.
So when I think about that particular question, and I wish our listeners could see my little face just disagreeing sometimes and agreeing other times because I'm fervently shaking my head in every direction. I have had the honor of being around and witnessing an Ironman, being around some triathletes, being around some cyclists, some weightlifters who do that as a sport and that's who they are. I've been around boxers. And the size and body diversity that I have been able to see and see how beautifully incredible their bodies perform for them has been so eye-opening for me. And I think of that right away because if you would have asked me prior to actually taking the time to step out of what I've been told by society is the way an athlete should look, I would totally believe what her clients are telling her too. But I have gone to races and have been so inspired by athletes that had you place them in a lineup prior to being involved with body kindness and prior to understanding size diversity would have never guessed they were the athlete that they are. And that is just congratulations to any of our listeners who are out there rocking it. I know I have an awesome friend who's a runner, and he's putting in some awesome times. And I know that there are people that probably wouldn't think he's a runner, but Mike is one of the most awesome, consistent runners that I've ever met in my life. And that's why I said his name. I hope you don't mind, buddy, but I just am constantly inspired by what you do.
Yeah. So it sounds to me kind of with that example, as you're talking about that a wide variety of sizes can participate in physical activities that seem like they're only for thin elite, right? So this idea of, for this physical therapist, one way of engaging in a conversation is by saying something like, well, you can practice self-care at a wide variety of sizes. And for example, with exercise, there are people who, are in larger bodies, they're fat people, and they do all types of training and activities. And, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but that is something that's accessible to you. And, you're not necessarily going to look like what you think an Ironman looks like, so kind of like challenging what it means, like what an athlete looks like from that component.
Well, that, and also, and you hit on something that just is going to make me share this next part, but it's so great to hear from a health professional that your body is doing what it needs to do, and that there's, of course, always room for improvement in being kinder to yourself and exploring how much more movement maybe you can get as a result of maybe the work you're doing with them. But just to hear, like when Rebecca says your body is good enough, and I was actually able to hear that and internalize it, like part of me got really sad because for so long I was telling myself that it wasn't good enough. And I'm sure some of our listeners out there are feeling the same thing or felt the same way. And like your body's good enough, like wherever you're at, like it's good enough.
Yeah.
That's your body, that's where it's at. And of course, there's always room to enjoy your body more so when and if you're ready to do that.
Yeah. And to cover another part of the question, she asked about to help people understand the concept of it. And I do think that we do need a phrase or a sentence that we can all use to describe what it means, because what usually happens is we're all in diet culture. So we've been trained to think that fat is bad. So we hear health at every size. And I mean, first of all, the people who are making money off body oppression and diet culture, they don't even want to buy into it. So you're really talking about people who are open to the idea of the concepts. And so if, as a helping pro, when I explain that to people, I use the words weight inclusive. And I basically say, health at every size is a framework for respecting an individual's rights and needs to pursue health in a way that's meaningful to them. And that includes within their financial means, that includes within the time they have available. And the goal is to help reduce stigma around weight and health and appearance. And so I think just helping people understand that first of all, you don't have to pursue health if you don't want to. Like that should not be a moral obligation. But you can explain that genetics has a major impact on our disease risks. And yes, your habits play a role. They absolutely do, but not as much as we think. And so I think if we explain that it's a bigger picture issue about reducing weight stigma, because weight stigma is associated with poorer health, and health at every size is a framework that focuses on individual needs and care and respectful care. And it understands that if you're at a higher socioeconomic status, you're more likely to be healthier because your day-to-day stresses are lower. And so you might not engage in deep conversations with your clients about that, but helping them understand that there are differences outside of our individual control, I think is really important too.
Good. Awesome. Great question. Keep them coming. Do we have time for one more, or are we almost there?
Let's just do one more. It kind of dovetails. Several people asked about the research component. And that's basically like, we'd love to hear about research thus far, to be able to share it. And I'm going to go through where everyone asked questions in these groups and share some links, and I'll share the links in here. But there is good research out there that advocates for the health at every size paradigm. The one that I would point folks to, it literally is titled Evidence for a Paradigm Shift, and it's the weight inclusive versus weight normative approach. And that's been published in a research journal. Can't remember where off the top of my head. But I would recommend just read that first, okay? They have tons of references. There is a decent body of research where you can go. You also have to understand the nature of research in general, which is it's very expensive. You need the most trustworthy evidence would be randomized controlled trials. And because of the weight cycling schema, you need to study people for 2 years or longer, or at least study them and then do a follow-up at least 2 years later. And so you have attrition rates, and there's all these issues that factor in. Tracy Mann also did a really good job at pointing out a lot of these issues, and she's a researcher, and her book Secrets from the Eating Lab goes into some detail about this. And Sandra Amit, who was a podcast guest, you can listen to that one. She also talks about it too. So those are two. That's a neuroscientist, food behavior researcher, and they're not necessarily like the big health at every size drivers. And that's what I actually love about them, is that they are not there to kind of push health at every size. Their main focus is not, against weight stigma, right? And they're sharing the fact that there is not a lot of good data, and the data that is there shows that diets don't work. And so what you'll appreciate about that weight inclusive versus weight normative approach is that they do a review of the literature, and then they've written in detail about the reasons why, with qualitative and quantitative evidence, the need for this paradigm shift. And if you want a real sort of simpler explainer, there's a great...
Please. And I'm going to go ahead and speak up for all our listeners. Rebecca, I did follow you, but I'm still, it's kind of like, you're like light speed, and I'm definitely cruising.
That's all right. For the researchy types, we'll include a link. The simple explainer is this amazing video. I'll include a link to it, and it's called Poodle Science. And it basically talks about the different breeds of dogs, and that a Mastiff is never going to be a poodle, but we apply poodle science to Mastiffs, trying to make them look like poodles. So yes, it's very cute. It's one of those artboard cartoony animations. So that is a very nice
We'll put it on a
way to
t-shirt
explain
for big guys.
Exactly. Cool.
Perfect.
Cool, yeah, but we'll keep these questions coming. We'll keep answering. We love to kind of hear from folks, and we'll answer your questions on the air as well.
Sounds good. Rebecca, I'd like to just take this opportunity to, again, bring up the Spiral Up Club. I want our listeners to really consider signing up and joining us for this entire year. Let's start really empowering ourselves to change this conversation around diet culture. That's the first and foremost thing that I wanted to say. And two, I just want to talk about how much I love our listeners and how awesome you are, and how honored I am to be able to sit and speak with you on this podcast, and how much I appreciate the fact that you guys are out there also doing your best to change diet culture. And I want to wish you the happiest and kindest of 2018s. That's I had to say it. I love them.
Well, I love them too. I love them too, Bernie. I love them. I love you. I love my clacker. And I think we should roll it out with another clacking tambourine little session. Do you still have your tambourine?
Absolutely. 2018, okay. Be kind to yourself.
Happy New Year,
and
everybody.
Others.